To Minnesota now, where on Saturday, for the second time in less than a month, an American citizen was shot to death by a federal immigration agent. And the breaking news tonight, CBS News has learned the commander of the federal immigration crackdown there in Minneapolis, Greg Bovino, will be relieved of his duties as President Trump announces that border czar Tom Homan will be coming in amid a change in rhetoric as well from the White House. Let's get to Chief Correspondent Matt Gutman, who's on the ground in Minneapolis for us. Matt, good evening.
Tony, good evening. Greg Bovino has been the very public face of immigration operations across the country, especially visible here in Minneapolis, even in confrontations with protesters. We're told he'll be sent back to his base in El Centro, California. That, as President Trump said, he spoke with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz about a very good conversation, but diffusing tensions here.
Greg Bovino, for weeks the public face of federal immigration operations here, has been reassigned from Minneapolis, along with some Customs and Border Protection agents here. That surprise move and the president's conversation with Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz today follow tense scenes overnight. It all comes a day after that deadly shooting of 37-year-old Alex Pretti. Multiple videos posted on social media captured various angles of the confrontation that led to Pretti's death Saturday morning. CBS News has slowed down portions of that footage for this analysis. Around 9 a.m., about 2 minutes before the shooting, Alex Pretti is seen arguing with agents. Pretti was acting as an observer, documenting ICE operations in the city, like thousands of others here in Minneapolis. Pretti, seen wearing that ball cap, holding a cell phone, is pushed back. A minute later, he's standing in the street, waving a car through. An agent approaches another apparent observer, then shoves her toward the sidewalk. Another agent pushes Pretti, then a second woman walks over. The agent pushes her to the ground and sprays Pretti with a chemical irritant. Pretti and the first woman try to help the woman who was knocked down. At least 7 agents join and try to take Pretti down to detain him. At this moment, an agent in a gray coat appears to remove Pretti's gun from his waistband and runs away from the scrum. A second later, with Pretti's gun now in the hands of that agent, the shooting starts. The agents fire as they pull back from their target. Pretti was an intensive care nurse at the Veterans Affairs Hospital in the city. We spoke with Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara.
Is there a concern that a genie has been let out of a bottle and that it'll be very hard to put it back in terms of mass protests across the city and the possibility of additional violence?
That's been my fear the entire time. I'm just concerned that the pressure is just going to keep building and building and building. And at some point, it's just going to be too much. People are losing faith that the federal government can be capable of enforcing federal law and doing it professionally and without widespread constitutional violations. They're creating a culture in these agencies that's not good, and it's going to take years to undo.
Now, we've told that the agents involved in the shooting here are still on duty, but have been reassigned elsewhere, quote, for their own protection. That, as officials here say, they don't know whether these latest moves are enough to change the dynamic here on the ground, Tony.
All right, Matt, thank you very much. In addition to speaking to Governor Walz today, President Trump also spoke with Mayor Jacob Frey. Ed O'Keefe is at the White House.
President Trump's calls with Minnesota's governor and the Minneapolis mayor came as the White House today sought to quell bipartisan outrage over the weekend shooting. Administration officials in the hours after the shooting had accused Alex Pretti of terrorism and attempted murder before any investigation had begun.
This individual who came with weapons and ammunition to stop a law enforcement operation of federal law enforcement officers committed an act of domestic terrorism.
Trump aide Stephen Miller called Pretti a would-be assassin. The White House today distanced the president from Miller's remarks.
I have not heard the president characterize Mr. Pretti in that way. However, I have heard the president say he wants to let the facts in the investigation lead itself.
One U.S. official told CBS News that making claims before any facts were established was a terrible miscalculation. Congressional Republicans have vowed to hold investigative hearings into the shooting, and Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz had this message for the White House.
Escalating the rhetoric doesn't help, and it actually loses credibility. And so I would encourage the administration to be more measured.
Senate Democrats are now also vowing to oppose $10 billion in new funding for immigration and customs enforcement as a result of the shooting.
If there are reforms, if they start to obey the law, if they stop harassing citizens, then that's a department that we can fund.
Congressional Democrats are talking about a partial government shutdown in protest over the president's immigration policy. Friday is the deadline. One other political note, a Republican candidate for Minnesota governor today announced he's ending his bid because he can't support national Republicans and their, quote, retribution on the citizens of Minnesota. Tony?
Ed, thank you very much. Also, one final note about this past weekend and what's been unfolding in Minnesota. Federal law enforcement officers shot 2 American citizens dead on the streets of an American city. And as is so often the case with deaths, these deaths were captured on camera from multiple angles. Awful videos that no one wants to see, but we saw them. And what we saw did not seem to match what the government said to us. At first, the Trump administration described Alex Pretti as a domestic terrorist. Kristi Noem said Pretti was brandishing his gun and attacked law enforcement. Gregory Bovino said Pretti was out to massacre law enforcement. But something seemed to break in the past 24 hours to give. Late Sunday, President Trump declined to say whether the ICE officer who shot Pretti had acted appropriately. Instead, the White House is now promising an investigation of the facts and a new face of the operation, border czar Tom Homan, who the president says will report directly to him.